Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. Today is one of those strange days for away fans. It's one of those strange days that we don't get too much of recently, in recent years, in Scottish football. And that is an away day Sunday kick-off at 3 p.m. Now, I know the buses are going up to Dundee today, and even though we are on that little bit of a reduced allocation, I know that some buses will be going up to Lochee. Yes, up to Lochee, up to that pub in Lochee. There's a couple of other Celtic related pubs in Dundee that fans will go to today. So make sure you have a fantastic day, guys. And I know there's a bit of disruption around the ground when it comes to parking, etc. So make sure your buses do get there early. Anyway, talking about Celtic, could this be the summer that we don't really want? And that, to be fair, there's a nightmare scenario this summer when it comes to transfer dealings. Celtic could be on the lookout for not only a new goalkeeper, because you know that Joe Hart's retiring, and Adam Ida might not be signed by Celtic, which means that Celtic will be looking for a new striker. Matt O'Reilly could be potential bid of £25 million to Celtic, which would release Matt O'Reilly to go off to pastures new, and Celtic would coin in. And then Paulo Bernardo, who's on loan, and it's been suggested would cost Celtic £6 million, but he's wanted by his old manager down in South America. And then there's Benji Siegrist. Benji Siegrist is going to be targeted by Aberdeen, potentially. And it's been said that Benji Siegrist is looking for a way out of Celtic. Remember, back in December, Benji Siegrist he had been in talks with the club with the potential to move, but those talks broke down at the last moment. Could it be the fact that Celtic will make some money out of the selling of likes of Matt O'Reilly, and then they'll downsize the way that Celtic usually does? And it's a kind of a nightmare scenario, because there's where you look at it, there's at least 4 first-team players, and it's not what really Celtic need just now. We need to be bringing in, we need to keep all our best players, but it is what it is. And when you look at it, sources have been saying that there's a player, Charles Pickle, who is playing in Serie B. Yes, the player from the Democratic Republic of Congo has been linked with Leeds United, Preston North End, and Celtic. And he has said that Celtic, I know this story's been kicking around for a few days, but Leeds are picking up on the story. A lot of Leeds sites are starting to pick up on the story, saying it's going to be a straight fight between Leeds and Celtic for the player. Now, his valuation, when you look at his valuation, it's only around about €2.7 million. It's not the big spending that Celtic fans thought they might do this summer. But as Celtic fans, we know that this is more than likely to be the scenario. They won't go for the £6 million rated Paulo Bernardo. We'll sell Matt O'Reilly for £25 million, and we'll go and get Charles Pickle for £2.5 million. It's just the way that Celtic do it, isn't it? And then it'll make sure that we've got plenty of cash in the bank at the end of the transfer window. Will Celtic go out and spend good money? When it comes to the Benfica loanee, his old boss has said that he is interested in taking him down to South America, which would leave Celtic in a bit of a pickle. Did you get that? Charles Pickle? There's my quote. Just take it. It's a Sunday morning. What do you expect? It would leave Celtic in a bit of a pickle. And would they go for Charles Pickle? Just do it again, just for the banter. Anyway, let's move on from that for just a moment, because remember Damien Duff? He's been making headlines over in Ireland. It says his dog is just as important to him as his Celtic medals. How cute on a Sunday morning. We'll go for a cute story on a Sunday morning. Yes, Damien Duff. It says the Shelbourne manager, Damien Duff, says that his dog Bella, he says that he got in Glasgow, means so much to him. Means just as much to him as his League Cup medals that he helped Celtic win while first-team coach at Celtic Park. Damien Duff, who spent 18 months at Celtic, initially as assistant manager in the reserves before being stepped up to the first team under Neil Lennon, when Neil Lennon came back to the club. Just forget about that bit. I guess he had a couple of amazing things that he brought from Glasgow. One was his crammed football education in the 2-year space, and a couple of league medals and cup medals. And that is on par with Bella. I can't go anymore. But just like Damien Duff says, his dogs just as important as his Celtic medals. Anyway, let's move on from that swiftly, shall we? Paulo Bernardo, his ex-manager at Benfica, at the young team, he says he's been watching Paulo Bernardo, and he tried to get Paulo Bernardo to leave Benfica a few years ago, but it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready. You've got to remember that Paulo Bernardo, I think he's still only 22, isn't he? But and his old manager is now in charge of a club in Mexico, and he wants to reunite with Paulo if there's an opportunity. He says it's making me. I sit on my sofa. He says he's sitting on my sofa and watch him play at the highest level. Scottish football. I think he means the Champions League, doesn't he? He says, I sit and watch him play at the highest level. He's contributed something which makes him very satisfied. I would like to reunite if there was that opportunity. Looking at forward to this summer, there could be that chance if Benfica are willing to let him go, that the manager could come in. The fact that Celtic do not have the obligation to buy, which is something that cost Lowell his job. We'll see what that plays out in the summer. Now, when it comes to it, there is a player that took to Twitter. It's now called X, and that's the one and only Celtic player, Bosun Lowell. He says to Fleetwood Town, he says, thank you, Fleetwood, for making my time at the club special. Gutted things didn't go as planned, but no doubt this club will be back where it belongs. To my teammates, coaches, and all the staff, a special mention, and to our fans, almost together. And a big thank you. Bosun Lowell comes back into the Celtic fold next week with the fact that he will be back at Lennoxtown training just because his team is done and dusted and their season. He will return to Lennoxtown so he could be under the watchful eye of the one and only Brendan Rodgers. Will he be one of the players to step up to the mark if the likes of Matt O'Reilly leaves or Paulo Bernardo? It is a bit of a different. He's a more holding midfield player. The fact that he went down there as a defender and he is now a midfield player seemingly, but Celtic will obviously come get him back, have a look at it. He came through the system here from a certain age at Celtic, and it'll be good to see where his future lies, whether it be at Celtic. Firstly, I think the fact that he showed that versatility to be able to play in defence and midfield, he was a standout performer for them, seemingly down at Fleetwood Town. It was unfortunate that Scott Brown didn't get to work with him as long as what he wanted, but is it a downgrade? Is it a downgrade, or is it what we've been talking about, is get him into that first team? And when I say is it a downgrade, I mean, when you look at the level that maybe Paulo Bernardo's at, when you look at Matt O'Reilly, is going for this Chris Pickle, is that going to be a bit of a downgrade? Because he is playing in Serie B. He's not even playing in the top league in Italy. But you just feel that sometimes Celtic take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. It's going to be a really important summer for Celtic, and I don't want it to be a nightmare summer scenario where we're then looking for predominantly first-team players that are going to make an impact. There will be other players that will leave Celtic. There's a lot of players that are sitting in the background that shouldn't really be anywhere near Celtic, and there's players that are out on loan that won't make the first team. One player being said Haksabanovic. So there's a lot of summer business to be done when it comes to Celtic transfers. One player that did leave Celtic, who's finally spoken about his time at Celtic, is the one and only midfield player who was a cracking impact midfield player. He did score a lot of goals from midfield, and he was an important player this season for Celtic. He scored and he was in form over Rio Hatate. People were outraged by Brendan Rodgers dropping Rio Hatate at the beginning of the season. And I said, look, why? Why are you outraged? I said at the time, I said, look, if you've been watching every single pre-match friendly, the one and only David Turnbull was head and shoulders above Rio Hatate during the summer and in regards to his form. And that was true to his word. He scored a couple of goals, important goals for us at the beginning of the season. But he's been talking about the fact that he thought that when he left Celtic, he thought he was going to get an extra day. He left training that day. And he said to all the guys, he says, I'll see you tomorrow. He never got to say goodbyes to all his teammates. He says, when you look at it, I waited 14 months to join Celtic when they first tried to get him from Motherwell. He says it was a prospect of becoming a bit part player under Brendan Rodgers that says to Turnbull, "Look, I want to go and play more football." And it seems to be quite a similar thing that goes on with football players at Celtic, and this is what happens when you're at big clubs like Celtic and even clubs around Europe. The bigger you are, the bigger squad you have, and the better players. It was hard for David Turnbull to try and get as much game time as he maybe felt that he deserved, but a lot of people said that. He says it was tough. Coming to the end of his contract, I had the decision to make. Celtics wanted to keep me to a certain extent, but he just felt that the time was right. But it was weird leaving the training ground when the deal went through to Cardiff. I said to the guys, I'll see you tomorrow. And then things happened that quick. I had to go back into Lennoxtown. He says, and there was only the elusive kit man, the kit man that Brendan Rodgers had a bit of a falling out with. He says there was only the kit man and some other staff. He says I'm in contact with 4 or 5 of the Celtic boys because we're very close. It was strange leaving behind. He says, but when you look at it, I won everything in Scotland. He says, with the move to Celtic, everything that I expected, yes. He says, I went there and I won things, and that's all you want to do in your career. You want to move to places and you want to win things. He says, is this the right move for me? He says, the fact that I played under Neil Lennon and I had a good season under Lennon. And he said I became a bit part player under Ange Postecoglou due to injuries, unfortunate injuries. He was a cast iron. He was a cert for the bench as many games, and a lot of people. We always seem to have a dig at Scottish players more than international players, and it's something that it is just what it is at Celtic. And David Turnbull was a player that could walk into any first team in Scotland, any top 5 first team, and he would be a regular. And I would even say that for the club across the city, he would walk into their first team and he would be a regular on a week in, week out basis. But when it came to Celtic, he says, when I came here, he says, look, he said, I had Callum McGregor and Scott Brown in front of me. And it's hard to try and get, and then you had about another 7 players trying to get the other 2 positions in midfield. He said it was quite hard. He says the fact that I wasn't a regular on the pitch, he says it wasn't down to lack of endeavour. He says I'm still at a young age and I think that I've still hit the heights of my career. After I got injured, he said you need to knuckle down. He says, but it's tough. And that was the frustration part. That was the frustrating part of being at Celtic. He says I scored goals, I won trophies. That's why you go to Celtic. But I picked up injuries at bad times during the season. He says before Ange Postecoglou came, when he first got here, I'd played something like 70 odd games for Celtic. He twisted his ankle, got a hamstring in the League Cup final, and then that hampered him for a while. And then Celtic go out and bring in players that are good players, and he said you've then got to try and get past them also. Now the fact that he's down in Wales at Cardiff, he says he's enjoying life. He said it's not a new start, it's about kicking on from where his career went to. He says he can walk around the town. He says, and it's the good thing about moving away from Celtic. He says when you're at Celtic, you need to keep yourself to yourself. And when you go out for walks, people stop you in the street, and while that's all nice and good, they want us away from the limelight. Really, the fact now he seems to be enjoying his life, and the boss down there will see the benefit of him next season. A lot of people said it was time for Turnbull to go. I said it was time for him to go, but considering the fact that he was in the last year of his contract, it was right and it was amazing, absolutely amazing that Celtic managed to get over £2 million for a player that was just only 6 months left on his contract. A fantastic piece of business, managing to recruit some of the 3 million odds that we paid for him, but it just didn't hit the heights. He didn't hit the heights, and he admits that himself, with the fact that he couldn't get as much regular game time, and that was one of the reasons that he wanted to leave. He just wants to play as much football as he can, and he believes he can do that down in Cardiff. Now, Celtic do play Dundee today, and it's one of those strange anomalies that never happen much in Scottish football, especially when you're a Celtic away fan. And going to an away game that starts at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, and you better manage to get to the pub before it. We did go through what we thought the team would be yesterday. If you haven't watched that live, yes, it was alive, and it was rather early in the morning. I don't know why I did it so early. I have no idea, really. I just fancy going live. And anyway, we did walk through the video and we did our predictions yesterday, so I'll put that video up at the end if you haven't seen it. If you haven't, go and watch that after this video. It is about a half-hour video, but what else you got to do on a Sunday morning? Just go and watch that and it will give you the predictions. And it was interactive predictions. It was interactive, something that's new to this channel. We're trying to get this channel as interactive, include you, the Celtic fan, as much as possible. So it was a fully interactive, and we picked the team, and the team players went up onto the screen live as we were talking about it. Anyway, Charles Pickle. Could he sort out the pickle in the midfield that Celtic might find themselves in this summer? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments. He is a player that can play attacking midfield, defensive midfield, and central midfield, which means that who does he replace? Because, I mean, attacking midfield, you could say, right, O'Reilly, but is he going to be a Matt O'Reilly replacement? Currently playing in Switzerland, comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He does have a contract that expires on the 30th of June 2026. And it is just like Celtic, isn't it? We're thinking that we're going to go out and spend £15 million on players. Not a freaking chance. There's no chance that Celtic are going to go out and spend $10 million on 5 players, which would be a really disappointing summer. You never know. You never know. Anyway, on that note, hope you have a fantastic day today wherever you are. It is a little bit cloudy here today. It looks like we might even get some much needed rain. Twice in a week it's going to rain. Unheard of in this part of the world. Anyway, I will go live an hour and 15 minutes before the game today with the team comes out and see how close we were to getting the team correct in yesterday's video. And then we'll go live after the game also. I think I might actually, if it's going to be raining, I might actually just do a second half watch along. Should we do a second half watch along? Never usually get a lot of people on it. Maybe we should. Maybe we should just do the full 45 minutes of the second half watching along live and listen to me going absolutely mental about the fact that Celtic are playing rubbish. When you look back at the last couple of games, we drew with the Rangers, we then went to Hampden, and then we drew with Aberdeen. There's been nothing in the last couple of games that said that Celtic are going to go out and annihilate teams. Our defence has been, well, it's got Liam Scales in it. Will Rocky come into the fold today? Due to the fact, but I think Scales will get the shout, don't you? I think Scales will get the shout this afternoon. Anyway, I'll see you about an hour and 15 minutes before kick-off. And on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the